YouTube and stuff and see when we're ready here. Doesn't show me on YouTube yet. All right, let me check here, make sure we're live. Yep, I think we're live.
All right, let's do this.
All right, we are live. I was just checking, make sure we're live. Can you guys let us know in the comments or chat where you're joining us from? This is Kurt and Mark. It's night 1 of the Dribble Drive Motion Training Camp. We've done a couple of these before, and this one's going to be a little bit different. So a couple of things before we get started. Let us know in the chat where you're joining us from. If you're on YouTube or if you're inside the Facebook group, would be great if you can let us know where you're joining us from tonight. All right. All right, we got Alfred Acosta from Midland, Texas, coach joining us. We got Coach Avi from Puerto Rico on YouTube. We have the Black Diamond from Melbourne, Australia. We got Jacob Parr, awesome, from Virginia. We have Diane from Wyoming. This is awesome. We got another one from Canada joining us. So we got people all over the world joining us tonight, Kurt. I know this guy. He talked to me this week. It is 3:30 in the morning in Hungary. That is some dedication right there. So, Coach Daniel, thanks for joining us. I'm looking for the person that's going to say Facebook user, but I don't see that yet. So everybody is a lot of YouTube, a lot of Facebook. So we're going to get started here as people are rolling in. Dribble Drive Motion Offense. It's Kurt Guelsdorf and Marc Hart. Okay, I'm Mark. I'm a high school basketball coach for the last 25 years, and 19 of them are actually, this was my 26th season, I think, this year, just finished. 19 as a head coach, and this year I switched to the girls' side for the first time and was an assistant girls coach. Also started system basketball back in March 2020 to do events like this and to help coaches around the world learn the latest trends in basketball. I feel I know Dribble Drive fairly well, been running it since 2008. And let me get who is that? Chris Glunt. Where's Chris at? There we go. Get him out there. All right. So that's a little bit about me. Been running the Dribble Drive since 2008. Over the course of the next 3 days, we're going to give you quite a bit of knowledge about the Dribble Drive, whether you're new or a veteran to it. We feel that you'll be able to take something out of this tonight. Kurt's going to let you know about himself.
Yeah, currently at the Clackamas Community College here in the Portland area, and been doing it for a long time. I'm old. Had a pretty good run at the high school level. Won a few games. Had some really talented kids, and have been a DDM guy since the real early days of Wahlberg starting it and doing it, and I've really enjoyed it, and I've kind of tried to make it my own. That's what I love about Dribble Drive, is really you could take the concepts and play that way and tweak it to your own liking, your own style, your own strengths of your team. So there you go.
Kurt's main social platform is Twitter, I think, is where you guys can reach out to him at Kurt Guelsdorf. Follow him there. You guys can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at Coach Marc Hart. If you want to follow us there, give us a shout out if you're enjoying tonight's content. We'd appreciate that. All right. So we're going to roll right into this here. Kurt, you want to take history?
Sure. Wahlberg kind of came up with it. He was in high school at Clovis. I think it might have been Clovis West way back when. And he started tinkering around some things and then got himself to Fresno City College and essentially, really, in his minds, created that ASA, the attack, attack, skip, attack, attack. It became more famous. And it was funny. I was at a clinic with Calipari and Wahlberg in Denver, Colorado in about 2000, I want to say 6, where they were sitting and talking. And that's when John was really starting to buy into it. And Vance was trying to convince him it was a good way to go. And then Vance went on and did some other things with it. You see a lot of it in the NBA and some of their get action. You see a lot of it in the old Denver Nuggets offense. And I see a bunch of it in what Brad Stevens started doing with the Celtics before he went up to the front office.
Okay. Who is DDM for? Youth teams? Not sure, Kurt. What age? What age do you think is probably the lowest you would go with this style of play?
Gosh, I think conceptually you could go down to 5th grade. I mean, as far as the concepts go, I have some thoughts on the conceptual basketball here later on in the presentation, but I think you could go down. And I think if you have we were very lucky with my time at Oregon City. We had coaches that bought into it big time and spent a lot of time watching us do it. And so they took it down and they took those concepts down of organized penetrations and teaching what happens when this happens. And I think it was really terrific and very seamless for us. So I think you can run it in different versions. I don't want to say dummied down because that's the wrong words, but just, dribble drive light in the 5th grade. And then you start getting into regular dribble drive about 7th, 8th. And then by the time they get to high school, they've got the conceptual understanding of it. And then you can just do whatever you want with them. And I think that's the beauty of it.
As we're going through, if you don't mind, what can help us out, and it will help out on YouTube and Facebook for us to get this reach to more people tonight. If you like the video or heart the video on Facebook, like it on YouTube, that'd be great. Whatever platform you're joining us on tonight, those platforms love engagement, and then basically it makes a notice out to more people to come join us and learn this information tonight. So if you can do that, that'd be awesome. College teams. Me switching to the girls side, I'm starting to see more and more women's teams running it. Guys teams run it. Some of the popular ones on the guys side is Nate Oates. Greg Campy's ran it at University of Oakland. Calipari made it famous at Kentucky. Professional teams. Kurt, I don't know if anyone purely runs it, but they run concepts of it. They use the spacing and the concepts of dribble drive there. Right. The last one's big here. The coach that wants to let players have some freedom. If you're a set play guy, you can have set plays. And this offense is great because it can flow right into it. But I think as you learn it and your players get better in it, the more that you're not calling stuff and letting them organically play off the concepts, the better. What's your opinion on that, Coach?
Yeah, I really agree with you there. I think, it's funny because when you say professional teams and then we say you don't really see it in its pure form, I think the great part about where most of us are, wherever we're at, me, junior college, you in high school, is it's kind of this low stakes area where we can experiment with things. We can do things different. I think the NBA, if I was to go in, let's say, the sky is falling and Kurt Guelsdorf gets hired by the Portland Trailblazers, and I go in and I tell the Portland Trailblazers, hey, we're going to run dribble drive. Okay. That's such high stakes basketball that to switch something to totally something different would take a radical revolution. Whereas I think most of us are in teams where we can do what we want to do. And if we see something we like and conceptually it helps us win and make better players. And I think that's the secondary thing that I always want to tell players. It makes you have better players. If you're a high school coach and you're trying to get kids to the next level, dribble drive will help them be players in whatever system they get into, whether it's motion or ball screen or anything. I just think that the concepts of it is just playing basketball. And so, like I said, the guys like us that can do stuff like this and play around with it, it's just so much fun.
Before we go to the next slide, this is what I wanted to see. Okay, on Facebook, as you can see, it says Facebook user. So whoever that is from Menominee, is that Michigan, right?
I think so.
Butchered that.
I think ML is Minnesota. I think MI is Michigan. Yeah.
Okay. Up in the description of the video on as you're watching it, up in the video area where you found it tonight, there's a link that will give StreamYard permission, and then your picture will show up so that you'll look like Coach Teskey here from Wisconsin. He has a picture of his basketball, or we have that's Jacob. So if you have a question or anything, you have your Facebook profile. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. But if you don't want to be notified as Facebook user when we bring up stuff for you, it helps us to know who's asking the questions so we can interact with you guys throughout these 3 days. So we're moving on here. Dribble drive motion philosophy. Who's it? Why typically your team's will be full of guards. I went to it because I was running flex, and then I went to Bill Self Kansas high-low. And if you're familiar with that back in the day, that's where you had to have 2 post players. Well, I love the offense, and I was trying to force feed it where I really didn't have 2 posts, but I played them because we were running it. So my second post was probably like my 8th best player, and that was just a recipe for disaster. So if you have more players that are in your top 8 that are guards oriented, or you're a school that's 5'8" to 6'2" on the boys side, or 5'6" to 5'10", 5'11" on the girls side, or even shorter than that, it's a great offense to look at. So that plays into the next bullet point, allows you to put your best players on the floor. Kurt will go over some analytics, but I've said this on numerous presentations. If your offense does not create closeouts in today's game, your offense isn't very good. The way teams are packing sometimes in the lane, and the more chances that you make the defense have to do a long closeout against your players. And we'll talk more about some of the 0.5 basketball, playing 0.5 decision making. And so Kurt, do we have the points per possession slide? We do, don't we?
I do. I believe we do. Yeah. And again,
okay.
the dribble drive plays right into those analytics of the game. And I think for me, and just to piggyback on what you were saying, we where I was at Oregon City, we had been a dominant post program on the women's side for a long time. Had won, 12 state titles in about 18-year stretch there. It was an amazing stretch, but we just were not very big, and we didn't have big coming in our youth program. A lot of really good athletes, and then the timing of it with Vance recruiting one of the guys at our school, we just went full blast into dribble drive and haven't looked back since.
All right. I think it develops players at lower levels. And the other thing I want to hit on tonight with this is I think it's an offense, but I think it's a framework, Coach. Like, you could put this in as your starting freshman offense, your beginning AAU offense, and pair it with Princeton, pair it with European ball screen type stuff, because what you're teaching with this is an organized penetration system. Is Kurt's heard me say that a few times, and it's a framework. It's not just an offense. I think if you teach it first, it's easier to add the other stuff because now your players know the rules. So that gets into teaching players how to play the game, not plays. One of the reasons why I went away from it was, number one, my player personnel were smaller, plus running the flex, teams would switch, teams would do things to us and force us to put the ball on the floor to make plays. So I wanted to find something that developed the players and taught concepts of how to play basketball instead of a structured pattern or play. Okay, we get the most of our 3-point shots off penetration and kick. I did a study when I was looking at running this. How were we getting threes? Was it off screens? Was it off staggers? No, it was off broken. We were driving. Defense was collapsing and helping, and we were kicking out. Kurt, you want to talk any of those bullet points some more?
Sure. Yeah, and even that last one that you've got there, it's conceptually based on the youth level. 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, when there's nights when you've got 9 kids. The dribble drive concepts can still be practiced. You don't have to have the 5-on-5 bill self high low. Now, if you don't have your one post because they didn't show up because grandma had a birthday, you can still run it. You can still practice it. You can still deal with it. And I think there's a couple things to think about when you coach basketball, because I think coaches can overcoach the game. We all know that. But teaching the game, the basketball comes down to decision making and positioning. And dribble drive teaches those two things. It teaches, if you do it the right way, and Mark and I are going to give you some insight into try to do it the way that we think has helped benefit us, what we've learned from other guys and watched. Okay, you got to make decisions, and you got to play in positions. Meaning, if this happens, where do I go, and play from there. And that's dribble drive offense.
All right. This is you. This is a new slide. I hadn't seen this one.
I've really thought about this a lot this offseason. Is think about when you teach defense, and this is kind of leading to dribble drive. Is we teach it. Okay, we're going to be in a pack line, and so we're going to be on the line, up the line, denial, or we're going to be open in pistols, or whatever we're going to be, and it's really all concepts. We teach defense in all kinds. There's no set play defense, and there's presses. We put kids in places. Right. But everything's concepts. If the ball goes here, this is where we go. If the ball goes there, this is where we go. Baseline drive, this is how we rotate. That's what dribble drive is for offense to me. And there's different ways that you could teach conceptual basketball. But I just think that dribble drive is a way that I've found is, and again, I almost think that when we say dribble drive, the first thing people think about is, okay, I'm putting the ball in the bounce. I think really great dribble drive is a great combination of attacking the paint, spraying the ball, punching it out, whatever verbs you use there to describe that, and then moving it to the right player, making a quick. And again, I'm a big 0.5 decision maker person. I've been moving that way more and more every year. My relationship with Doc Shepler down there in San Francisco has kind of pushed me that direction, and it's helped our dribble drive a ton. And again, just to clarify, hop shooting. So a lot of the things that I'm going to say in our conversations might be related to that. So I wanted to throw that out there to anybody. If you talk about, okay, we're going to hop into that shot, that's what I'm talking about. I'm going to jump off 2, land on 2 guy. So when you hear those words, I wanted to throw that in there to go from there. But to me, dribble drive is just conceptual basketball that you can add your own wrinkles to, but essentially you're playing off organized penetrations. And Mark's hit that right on the head. And I think that was my favorite thing he's ever said. And I think it's one of the very best ways to describe dribble drive.
And I've become a hop shooting guy since meeting Doc as well. So so a lot of our thinking is playing off of a hop, not a 1-2. So if you could still run this offense, I did for years with the 1-2, but the explosion, and we'll be getting into a lot more of that throughout the next 2 days. So our goals for today for you are the core concepts of the dribble drive motion offense. So if you're new or veteran, we may teach you a little bit of different terminology or a little bit of different way of how we think we like to do it. So the philosophy, we kind of went over that. We're going to go to a court geography and a numbering system, a spacing, and the penetration rules tonight, and then have some video examples of some dribble drive stuff for you guys to go with this tonight. So you can kind of see it on a board diagrammed up, and then have some video context to go with it of game action. The big 3. So I don't think we've ever done a presentation, Kurt, without going over the big 3, because in all honesty, when I get questions, and probably Kurt, and we look at game film and we're studying other coaches that ask for our help, it comes back to these 3. A lot of the times is the attack mentality. I know Kurt's going to talk about it. He worked with a group this weekend or last weekend. I don't remember. Was it last weekend out in California? And he talked to me about it, the attack mentality. So a lot of the problems with it is if you're running this and you get in that weaving action, it's probably because when they're attacking initially, they're thinking pass. The ball handler's number one thing for me is to attack the basket and score. It's easier to go from the mode of scoring to passer than it is passer to, oh my goodness, they're not guarding me, go score. Do you want to have anything on attack mentality, Kurt?
No, I think you hit it right on the head. It's just you have to have the mindset that at minimum, I'm getting a paint touch. At maximum, we're getting all the way to the rim. If I'm just taking 2 dribbles sideways, you're talking about north, south, east, west. If I'm taking 2 east-west dribbles, it better be to set up something. Maybe it's something you've seen. Maybe there's an overplay to a back door. Maybe your player has been really riding you and I'm setting something up. But otherwise, I'm trying to get past a hip, trying to create space, take the, guys that talk small advantage, big advantage, take a small advantage, make it big, or make a small one, get to paint, create a big advantage for a teammate. If I see chest, I'm going to play off 2, I'm going to kick it out, and I'm going to sprint to space. Because again, that it goes back to the 2 things I just said before, because that's what the big 3, when you combine it down, it's decision making and positioning. And again, decision making goes with the attack mentality, and then the positioning piece, the gaps and the spacing.
So on gaps and spacing, in my opinion, they kind of go hand in hand, but they're different. When you're creating you want to create, the saying goes, and we're going to see some diagrams here of the spacing, but you pass through single gaps and you drive through double and triple gaps. And that's a saying that you're going to find yourself saying over and over as you're putting this in and reminding, because you can run this out of 4 out, 1 in, 5 out, 3 out, 2 in, but the purest form of it is 4 out, 1 in. And that's what the originator did with it. People have made modifications to run it to fit their personnel. But even though it's a 2-guard front offense to begin with, you want to start with a 1-guard front as much as you can. And if you do that, you're creating gaps for your players to drive. Do you want to talk? We good here?
Yeah, I think so. We've covered.
Okay. I like how you explain this one.
Yeah, I think with your first day, shot selection to me is very undercoached, and so I really think that teaching players, one step higher, giving them some basketball IQ points, talking about the points per possession is a big one, and I think it helps explain. I actually, for our teams, from high school now to college, we put tape down on the floor for the first week. My AD picks it back up immediately after the practice, and I put it back down the next day. But the point is, we need to understand what great shots are. And if you think about what we're trying to get, your best shot obviously is an uncontested lay-in. So that little red area in there with nobody guarding me, let's say maybe it's 1.8, 1.9. Maybe on the guy's side, it's all the way to 2 because you're dunking it or whatever. But you might have a miss here and there. 1.2 is that contested lay-in in the paint rack zone. Somebody's kind of next to you. The 1.4 is the free throws. And just to explain what Dribble Drive does is it puts a lot of pressure on the defense. You are constantly attacking, constantly exposing weak on-ball defenders. And I'm telling you what, we spend a lot of time on our scouts attacking those weak defenders, finding those weak defenders, finding the first sub off the bench and trying to get, deep paint touches and isolations against those guys. So getting fouled, getting to the free throw line, we've been consistently top 5, top 10, getting to the free throw line in our region again, and we shoot 25 to 33s a game. And then the 1.05, you're shooting anywhere from 33 to 36. 33 has always been kind of that magic number to get past the 1.0 points per possession. But if you can shoot 36% from threes, get to the foul line 15 to 20 times a game. And I know Mark had a great formula he had for high school that we might share here in the next couple of days, that he wanted to get to 80 points through a couple different ways. And it's just a great way to explain the game to players. And you as a coach thinking about, what do you want to get in your offense? And I would be looking at this on day one, whether I was a flex guy, whether I was a Bill Self guy, whether I was a 5-out motion guy. These are the shots I would be trying to get in my offense, period. And Dribble Drive is built to get these shots.
I mean, we reference Bill Self, but now if you watch Bill Self play, he's more of a 4-out, 1-in guy. So and running some DDM concepts. So it's
I
the
think
game
his favorite
evolves.
ATO, his favorite ATO this year was a little dribble drive-ish. It was a modified wave almost to get the number 30. I can't remember his name, but their best player downhill from a left slot, left wing area. So.
All right, so this is always the fun for the new people that are just learning about dribble drive, or they don't know who Vance Wahlberg was. Vance, so the 5 is not a center. I'm just going to start with that so people aren't freaking out that, oh, why is my center standing next to the point guard in the slot areas, right out here at mid-court area? He did reverse psychology. He said nobody wanted to be the post, so he named the perimeter player the 5, and he named the post the 4. That's the story that I heard, and I think Kurt's probably heard the same when he tells it, and that's the only rhyme or reason. So real quick on this one, 1 and 5s are like point guards. My thing that I like to do is if you have a younger guard that's going to be a point guard in grooming, you play them at the 5 because they may not want the full responsibility yet of being the point guard, but they can. 1 and 5 are the same spots. 2 and 3 are the same spots. All 4 of them will be moving. They're positionless. So I this year, we had numbers, but we got away from numbers and said, hey, you're a slot, you're a corner. Slots being where 1 and 5 are, corners being where 2 and 3 are. Or you were a post. We ran it out of 5 out as well. So where the 4 is, we put them in the stretch window 45 free throw line extended on one of the sides. So we would say occupy 5 of those 6 spots, 2 slots, a stretch, and 2 corners is how we would run our 5 out. So we didn't have to teach 2 ways of running it. We just moved our 4 to a stretch. So that's just the numbering system. A lot of people are putting the 4 where the 5 is and doing traditional. Other people will do 1 and 3 in the backcourt, odds in the backcourt, 2 and 4 evens in the corners, and then your post being your 5. I've seen it done that way as well. So you could pick however you want to do the numbering system. You don't have to copy exactly this numbering system if it doesn't fit your philosophy. Kurt, you want to go over the zones here?
Yeah, and I think just to piggyback on that last one, like Mike Neighbors at Arkansas, he names them, he gives them names. If you like that, I was talking to a high school coach today, and he was asking about how he in his 5-out dribble drive could do some things, and I said, well, don't give them numbers, give them like little names if you want a kid setting this or doing that or whatever. So I think the great part is just to me, it's more about the positioning piece than the names and the numbers. The zones, you go to the old Wahlberg, like, and what I've seen is where we're trying to put pressure on the defense, and that's that breakdown zone up top. That's where we're trying to start coming downhill. It flows from the blowout, which is the volleyball line, 10 foot to 10 foot, where we're really just trying to fly through it, maybe top a key to 10-foot line. Drop zone is the traditional name given, and early on that was a very rigid, very tight box on each elbow. I can remember putting the tape down on the elbows, and it wasn't very big and it wasn't very wide. Now it can extend as far out as you want it to. You can get back doors against pressure from virtually top of key extended. So that drop zone is an area where a ball handler might pick up the ball and throw it to a player for a back door, or throw it to another player for a quick give and go. The drag zone is the area where we're looking to either throw it behind, straight behind, or to the weak side, kind of a skip pass. That's originally in Wahlberg's system. There was a lot of 1 to 3 emphasis, a point guard coming down and jumping in the air and 1 to 3. And I remember practicing that a ton and then seeing we didn't get a ton out of it and kind of tweaking a little bit of how we executed it. And I even broke it down to early drag and late drag. to keep kids out of trouble, because the late in the drag zone can be tough. The rack zone, that's where we want to get to, kind of get to the green light there, get a land. We want to try to get in there and put pressure on the D, either get fouled, get a under control land. If we have chest in front of us, we're going to play off 2. If we have advantage, hip to hip where we can extend out, maybe no gather land, we're gonna go ahead and finish that way. And again, you can see the numbers. We've got a 2-side and a 3-side, but again, those are very interchangeable. And again, with going back to the numbers up top, you could do this any way you want to. Sometimes early on, I called it an H-back when I was teaching this in high school, and kids loved to be the H-back. I borrowed it from the football coaches. If you follow football at all, there's an H-back. A lot of times it plays in front of the running back or splits out in motion and those kind of things. And so you could give it a lot of different names. But for us, it was the person who took the ball out of bounds every time.
All right. So that's
yeah, that just adds the Nash. Yeah,
okay.
I just threw that in there. That just adds the Nash zone, just because I know it wasn't the other one. I probably could have clipped it and made it all one. But the Nash zone is one place past the rack where, honestly, coaches, I think if you could teach players to be effective down there, it could be an awfully dangerous spot to throw what in dribble drive is called a tee up or a drift pass. And a drift pass is pretty common to any offense. But that Nash zone, it's a lot safer than stopping late in the drag and turning it over. So Steve Nash made it famous, getting underneath the rim. A lot more famous than Drazen Petrovic for the Blazers, who would drive under there. And we always wondered what he was doing. And then 5 years later, Steve Nash was doing it, and everybody loved it. So just a little add-on to the previous slide, that's all.
And then if there's any hockey fans, Kurt's heard me say, I refer to it sometimes as Gretzky, like thinking of Wayne Gretzky growing up here in California when he came to the Kings, him with the puck behind the net and just like toying with the defense and throwing passes to people, dive into the basket or out for shots. So kind of like a Gretzky type thing too. So going behind the net, wrapping around and doing shots or reverses and stuff like that. So it's a great area of the floor. The blowout zone. So you're going to see some clips here in a little bit. This is where they want to play through tempo. They want to play fast through here. And throughout this presentation, we haven't done it in one of our 3 days. I don't think we've gone over drills in one of our 3 days. We're going to do some build-up drills. So you're going to learn half courts, full court drills that we use, and some that you've probably seen and some that you haven't seen, or some tweaks on ways to do certain drills. So that's going to come in the next couple days as well for you. So, but the blowout zone, you want to play through tempo there. Real quick on the gaps here. So the one on the left is traditional 4 out, 1 in spacing. I mean, I think we made an error and got to fix this for future. Traditional would probably move the 4 to the strong side for most teams, and they would be on the same side. If you're looking at a real traditional, probably 4 out, 1 in, but we'll fix that next time. But what are gaps? So between 1 has the ball. So the spacing between 1 and 2 is a single gap here on the left diagram. Spacing between the 1 and the 5 is a single gap. If 5 had the ball, it would be a spacing of single gaps. So what the genesis of the offense did was move those players to the baseline and put the post player opposite the ball. So 1 now has a double gap to attack. So you heard me say earlier, you want to attack, you want to dribble through double gaps and pass through single gaps. So we're going to see here how you would create a triple gap. Kurt, you want to take these?
Sure. And again, there's ways we create those triple gaps. And you can see in this slide, we've got the 1 with the ball. The 5 is looping, through cutting. There'll be different names you could use for these. I use nail cut or arrow cut to describe the same thing. And what you could see is the distance between 1 and 3 has created a triple gap. And those are the gaps you want to attack. And again, the theory is that, only great players can get through single gaps. Good players, I think Vance always said, can get through a double, and anybody should be able to get through a triple, something to that effect of, you should be able to get some penetration in a triple gap.
I think you might have said, I've caught myself saying it a few times, that if I create a triple gap and you can't beat a triple gap, it's going to be probably pretty hard to put you on the floor.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's one gap bigger than that, and we'll probably hit that tomorrow with some of the wave techniques that I think Vance came up with the term a super gap, which is pretty much like 4 gaps. So just real quick on guard rules. You want to have an attack, skip, attack mindset. And for you unfamiliar with it, that's what the real name of the offense was. It was called ASA. AASAA is what the original name of the offense was. And Calipari, I think, dubbed it the Dribble Drive Motion Offense, and it's kind of stuck since then. Always is probably a harsh rule here, but if someone's going to penetrate, you got to have someone dragging behind is the term that's used a lot. Some people will use the word Euro cut. I use the term 6. So if someone's driving towards the basket, the player going behind them is a 6, like a clock. So they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So my player would say 6, 6, 6 if they're open. So the player knows that they're behind them in their 6. That's what I use. I've heard people use the word drag. I've heard people just say their name, whatever, but I use a term for our team. So you pass and you cut, unless it's a play call. But 90% of the time, you're going to pass and cut. I like it. Jacob liked it. So Jacob used it. 6 is great for high schoolers and younger to understand the concept. Okay. Like that. Thanks, coach. If a player can't dribble, penetrate, take ball to middle for spacing, we'll maybe hit on this a little bit. That's an underutilized skill in this offense. People grind too much, right? Like they try to force that penetration. A lot of people will use that as a bounce out. You can bounce out, re-attack, or bounce out and move it. But I think early on in your career of doing this, I was bad at it, where we got to get a piece of the paint. We got to get a piece of the paint. And there was no like reading the defense a little bit to see what they have. It was just straight put your head down and get in the paint. And it was bad. It was bad basketball. We had the attack mindset, but we weren't attacking great gaps and we weren't efficient. You want to be efficient in this offense. The ball goes to the high post. That's some drop stuff. I'm not going to give them users to that tonight, but we'll see it. But if the ball goes to the high post, somebody should be cutting to the basket. It's a give and go options. Usually if a player backdoor will have a post flash. So if the ball is dribbled at you, Princeton rules. If the ball is dribbled at you, you go backdoor. Okay. If you dribble at a defender, it's a handoff. And I can make those calls from the bench. Kurt, if you want to do a dribble handoff play, aren't those for the most part calls for you?
Typically, we want to maintain most of the time our spacing into kickups and kickbacks. DHOs kind of happen organically too, where maybe a defender, you're kind of trying to flow into offense a little bit, and they just happen. Early in my career with Dribble Drive, I was adamant. We'll never hand it off. Just it's got to be a kick up. We have to have great space, and then you start to realize that a DHO to get a little false motion to move the defense a little bit there's nothing wrong with it, and it could be an integral part or a very small part of your dribble drive. But like I said, I think those are great rules, especially when you can maybe teach the players too conceptually to dribble at a defender, flip it behind. Run a DHO kind of brush cut if you know the team's not switching. Those little things could come in handy.
Now, we talk about the perimeter a lot. My best teams, I've had good post players, not necessarily back to the basket post kids, but good dribble drive, undersized post players that can relocate, tee up, flash the elbow, catch balls, and lay it in the hoop. One of my best seasons, I had 3 kids alternate at the spot where they just subbed in and out for themselves. And the 3 players in a 32-minute game combined for 18 points and 15 rebounds a game. So the more points you can get in the paint, the better in this offense. And honestly, high school level, I think it's a great offense because you're going to have an offensive lineman from the football team. You're going to have a setter from the or a middle blocker or something from the volleyball team that's going to come out for your program. That's not maybe going to be with you year round, but you could teach them enough stuff to get opposite the ball, catch the ball, and lay it in. Coach, you want to add anything with the post?
No, I think, again, that's a question I'll get all the time. Hey, I got a great big. I mean, if I run dribble drive, can we still get them the ball? And I'm like, yeah, that'll only make your offense better. It'll force teams to hug a little tighter. It'll give bigger driving gaps at the end, or bigger ability. Because one of the big issues with dribble drive, honestly, is how do you handle the defensive big sliding over? And that could be more of an advanced concept, but that's something that I think that a big can be really valuable.
So the core concepts or the basic movements come down to kickups, kickbacks, drops, and relocations. So 3 of these are perimeter players, and one of them's pretty much the post player's job. So we're going to get into some. Do you want me to do the Lucio stuff now?
Yeah. Let me just talk a little bit about the one slide here real quick, and just to go. And then there was a question that Bobby had. Let's get that just in case he has to bump off. He was talking about arrow cuts continually. That's you're getting to some advanced concepts there. When you have some sagging defense, you have a defender playing the nail. I think every coach on here needs to consider how they're going to play a team that puts a defender on the nail. That's what every NBA team, all 32 or whatever of them are, can think about every single night. So figuring out ways to move a nail defender with any arrow cut, that's kind of my terminology there that I've used. That would simply be in this diagram, sending that 5 through every time. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. And I think that certainly can get you started to flow into your offense. And once the flow happens, different people will start to fill behind. And there's sometimes when there's those window shot passes without somebody dragging behind because you've arrow cut it out. Those are things that we could talk about as we move forward in the 3 days.
Coach Sangster sent me an email today. Was excited about being on this. He's been running dribble drive since 2007.
Wow!
Before he kind of even knew what it was, and he saw the SI article, the Fast and the Furious article that probably blew this whole thing up. For anybody that familiar with what I'm talking about there, that's kind of the era that Kurt was a little bit before that, and that's about the era that I started running it as well. So, all right, go ahead and
I'll hit the slide here. It's just the way I teach it is all the action happens when something crosses those lines. Meaning, if my one could penetrate that free throw line extended, that's when the action happens. 2 makes a decision, whether that's to hold versus a hug defender, whether that's backdoor, or whether that's to lift for a kick up. If they start to swing it, or maybe cross that midline with a dribble toward the 3-man, and the 5 comes behind it, that's where the 4 would relocate. So early on, when I'm teaching this with younger players, I will put that line right down the middle of the key if there's not one in your gym. And then I'll also put a little bit of extended off the elbows there to make sure everybody knows. That's when the other players start to move and those organized penetrations start to happen, the reaction from the penetration.
All right. We good? You see that, Kurt?
Yep, I got it. We're good, man. Looks great.
Okay. So now we're going to have a little bit of animated diagrams with majority of these concepts I have filmed to go with them tonight. Some I don't, but the first one I'm going to do lane, and then we're going to probably alternate how we're going over these. But I call it lane penetration. A lot of people call this a north-south attack. What do you call it, Kurt? I call it lane penetration.
Yeah, just attacking the rack. We're breaking the glass. That free throw line glass.
So to kind of go over what Kurt was saying here, and Kurt, jump in here if you.
Sure.
So as you could see, Kurt said that's his line to break right there. So this is where the movement happens. You're going to have 2 players move, and you're going to have 3 players move here in a second. I don't have it. So on this, your 4-man usually is going to start turning in here and like sealing. They call it a cleanup is what. So all intents and purposes, the reason why is if X4 went here and X3 went here, they're sealing that help to helper. And in dribble drive, you always have to have a player go behind the penetrator. So when I told you guys 6, this is 6 for me. That's the call. Some people will call it drag. Okay, that's the Wahlberg term. Okay, I call this window. Kurt, I think, may call this 45 now.
Yeah, it's a 45 spot, but the window pass.
Okay, so this 3, it's not a set area. They're trying to find an open area in case one needs a bailout. 2 is going to be here. So dribble drive. I'm going to go over this a few times. When you hit these spots, when you hit that rack zone right there. So when the player hits the rack zone, rack zone, you're going to have player opposite the ball in the post area, opposite post, opposite 45 window area, behind them, and same side corner. That's how your spacing of the big 3 should look. 3 players behind the 3-point line and the driver and the post inside the 3-point line. Okay. That was lane penetration. Kurt, you want me? I'll play it. You want to go over the middle?
Sure. And I just think going back to that last slide, just one of the things that is really important to those is patience in the corners. Not lifting just to lift, just making sure you're very patient. You're reading the play in the corner.
I do have film here. So as you could see, the other guard is way over here, spaced. And you could see his man's guarding him at the elbow. You got your corner spaced. This player's a little high for my liking. I'd like him a little bit lower. And the post is in the dunker spot. So he reads dump. Boom. That's what he read. So that is a lane penetration with a dump off. I'd call it a rack dump is what I would call it. So here's middle. Kurt's going to go over. So we'll do it from the 1 to the 3 side first.
And what's happening there is the 5 is coming behind initially for a kickback. The 1 may see that it's not there. The 1 may make a decision that they have an advantage. They may, use a fake of some kind to try to get that, and now the 5 has to come back to get directly behind the 1 on that penetration. And you've got your weak side window, you've got your dump off, you've got your drag behind, you've got your corner.
Okay. So now if we went from the other opposite slot with the ball handler going, that's what it would look like for you. Got a couple of in-game actions here to try to. All right. Wonder who this team is. This is Clackamas here. So we didn't go over this. We will. They started with the pass. You don't have to have the 1 player throw it. She passed and cut through, and now she's going down the middle. That's a middle penetration. Okay.
Yeah, 23 should be circling behind. to get in that sixth spot. If you want to go back a little bit, Mark, just that clip, just real fast. Again, there are 5 taking it out. Now, if you go back just a little bit, if you're looking at this spot right here, again, we've got a not the fastest lineup in America right there on the floor. But here's what we've got going is if you look at the point guard, we're reading. Okay, again, go back a little tiny bit more. About right here, you got pack line-ish stuff. You got 2 guard front. You're probably not going to get a great. So you move it and you cut. And again, if they're non-switching, you can try to brush. In this case, the 5 trailer makes a nice little in and out, gets the defender even farther out of position, able to take a bump. If you can't take a bump, if you can't teach your players to take a bump, you're going to have to reassess, because you're going to eventually have to take bumps to get to the rack zone or at least create your paint touches.
And the importance of what Kurt was talking about, 23 circling back, getting into the 6, is the concepts of the offense, because a lot of times this player right here might have went and helped. So what you want to create in that situation is a positive pass. So they want to be in a line or on the other side of this player, so that this player can't shoot the gap and steal it and go get layups on that side of the court. So that's a very important concept.
The other thing by 23 coming behind would be to create a window off 2 feet for the wing kid. So there's 2 things that happen because of that cut behind. There would be a 6 pass, a drag for us, and it would also put pressure on, I would say, X3 right here. Are you going to cover down? You going to stay home? Again, that's all assuming that instead of the lay-in, we would have a 2-foot stop and playing late in that drag.
Got one. That was his team. This is my team. And again, we're not spaced properly here. This is first year running it here. This player should be corner. Okay. Other than that, we're where we're supposed to be. She's not where she's supposed to be, but there was no cut there. She just read 0.5 decision, catch, split drive. So she just went. So those are two game concept or game actions, so you can kind of see what a middle penetration looks like in the offense. Oops.
There's a couple questions in there, Mark, that you might want to address while we're right in the middle of it. We're talking about when do you lift the 2? And then the second one, are we getting to hop
So
step
that one
when we get into the dunk rack?
On the lane penetration, does 2 lift when the driver stops? I teach it this way, Jeff. If they're below drop zone and in the drag and rack, I learned the terminology from Doug Novak. Does your player need help, or do they need space? So if they get stuck and they're kind of like there, then I would have them kind of lift and go behind, especially if they went in and sucked in, they got double teamed. They're probably going to have to create an angle. What's your take on that, Coach?
Yeah, and that's good stuff. We traditionally have probably lifted more. That's probably one of those ones where the personnel-wise, we didn't have the dominant one driver. And later on, as we had a more dominant one driver, then we really taught patience in the corner. And I think that's one thing that you'll start to see certain players, you really want to give them that space. Give them space, give them space, give them space. Don't lift and because we're always talking about when you lift, who do you bring with you? You bring your defense. I probably have said that statement 8 million times the last 20 years is when you lift, when you bring the closer to the ball, you're just bringing your defender. And then that second one, point guards, hop step. When you get, we're gonna play off 2, Coach. When we get in there, if you're talking about, we see chest, we see a defender chest, we're gonna play off 2. If we feel like we have an advantage, we could play off 1 to get and rack it. But anytime we have somebody in front to stop us, we're going to play off 2. And I think that's been huge for us. I teach that a bunch, playing off two. Villanova, Jay Wright has kind of been it's a big deal now. Everybody wants to play off two, play off two. I just saw a lot of kids that got out of control. I saw a lot of kids that tried the one-footed runners that were bad shots that you'd watch them in practice, even during breakdowns when maybe there was just guided defense or even 1-on-0 warm-up time would miss lands because they were just too fast and too much jumping long rather than high. And so I really encourage playing off two. That doesn't mean we don't ever have 1 foot lands. We have a bunch of them, but I think the playoff two as much as you can, recognizing when the defense has you stopped, contained, you see their chest, will really emphasize that.
I'm looking at your question, Alfred, and when you're saying hop step, I used to be a jump stop coach in this when we got in the rack zone area, jump stop, but the last couple seasons I've gone more to a stride stop. Went to it on the girls' side because I didn't want to do big old hops and big old stuff for blowing out knees and stuff. So we knock on some wood. We didn't have any knee injuries this past season's teaching stride stops. So not sure if that's where you were heading with that question, but I think that's as well. Maybe that's where you were leading with it as well. So hopefully that answered your question there.
Yeah. And if you guys are wondering about a stride stop, it's kind of a trail foot pivot with your butt toward the paint. On either side, you end up with your rear end paint toward the paint area, and you could finish off that. You could throw a drag behind it. You could throw a window drag out of that also.
Okay, so you can have middle penetration, and this could be with a corner occupied or without a corner occupied, but the rules are the same again. When they break that thresh point, 4 should start to come. And now 3s read out of it, 5 relocates. So on these middle penetrations, 4 and 5 mirror each other. If they're going, 4 and 5 should be on the same lane line. That's the way they should look. 4 and 5 should be on the same sides of the floor. The easy way to understand that. Now on this, they're a little bit in this spot, and we're going to say they picked it up there. And they didn't hit 4. 3 would have the option to what we would call a drop or kick up. A lot of people refer to this as a burn for backdoor and loop or lift. Those are different terms I've heard. I don't know if you've any other ones out there, but those are the ones I've kind of heard of late. So 3 has the option off in that area of the floor. If they pick it up, they got to read that corner defender. And we'll show you drills here coming up in the next few days on how to help train these actions. Okay, so that was middle. So last one of the penetrations is baseline. And this one can be a set against like no middle defense if you want to take advantage of that, or if you threw it ahead in transition. So if they rip the ball baseline, the rules change slightly. We still have someone get to their 6. That would be 6. We still have the 45 window area. And I want to say this person would probably be anywhere in that area based upon where their defender is so that they could see them. The opposite corner needs to stay, and this is referred to as, I call it the drift. Coach, what do you call it?
I do. That's the baseline drift that can be so effective, man or zone.
And then there's the tee up. Okay, so this is 2 would have a layup option. If X4 came over to help, they'd have 4 there on a tee up. If 3 helped, they'd have the drift, and 5 would be there. So let's take a look at.
Mark, you want to go back just for 1 second? I think that's really good. Just to tell coaches the non-negotiables on this, guys.
Where do you want me to stop?
4, just right there, perfect. The non-negotiables in this here is you got to fill the corner, and you got to get your tee up. Now the 5-man is the one that has flexibility, and I think there's someone in there. Now Don mentioned you have 3 in a row. You're exactly right, Don. This is where the 5 has to kind of read the play. And what we've gone to a bunch is we will 45 cut that. We will bring the 5 into better windows. And so what you have to have is a 5 that's, and again, our rules are pretty simple. If you're a shooter, stay spaced. And if you're a non-shooter, you could 45 cut it. And if you got a good 45 cutter, guys, you can get a kid who's not a great 3-point shooter and play in dribble drive all day long, because that 45 cut on the baseline drive is a very effective weapon. If they're more of a shooter, you tell them find a window or be ready on a 1 more, because the drift, a 2 to 3 pass, non-negotiable. The 3 has to be there. They have to. The 4 has to be at the tee up, and the 1 has to be the safety valve if they get stuck outside the paint. But the 5 has to be, the 5 has to be savvy. They may come all the way over to find a window. Yep.
This is the worst. This is the worst 3 in a row you could be.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, this is where if this player would have came in, if 2 would have drove like this area, I would say leave 4 in the short corner if they're like driving through the elbow. But what we're talking about is a baseline below the free throw line extended type drive. There's a difference between those 2 drives. If they're coming straight at them here, that's a tough one. And I struggle with, should that player go here like the real rules, or should they stay there? That's a gray area where you're going to get, if they stay there sometimes and not. I mean, I'm sure Kurt's shaking his head like that's a gray area, that one right there.
Yeah, especially how aggressive is X4 helping up? Are they hands high? Are they half a step up? Are they a bad defender? I mean, can you lob it? What can you do? And again, like I said, that 45 slot is one that's fun to play with, and I think it's very much for us. In my point, is personnel driven. If they're a 3-point shooter, you better find a window and create a place for you to catch and shoot. If you're not, 45 cut it, and you're going to get decent looks.
Okay, the player is not in the dunker spot in this transition here. They threw the ball. So this gives you an idea of what it looks like. They threw it ahead. I like to do this. Kurt likes to do this. We like to throw the ball ahead to our corner players and let them attack. It doesn't always have to be your 1 in 5 initiating this offense. So this player right here is their post. This is the 5. She's going to come here. She's going to fill, and this player is going to be. So she runs. So in around, she is in the tee up. She's behind her. She's in an open area. Defender's over here, and she's in the drift. So their spacing was good. It didn't. The post was not in the dunker spot, but she still got to a tee-up spot because her player was coming over there. That player could have stopped and gave her the ball right there at the NWAC. Okay. So now another core is a kick-up. And I teach this last. Because this is what every player in America wants to do. They want to run to the ball. So you teach this first, that's what all your players will do. I teach this last. But we need to show this. This is that I got stopped. My player read to come up, need help, play. So typically it turns into a middle drive and 4 fills the corner and we play. That's a kick up. Don't have any game film on that because it happens. A 1-2 kick up, me and Kurt hate to start your offense. So we like to go opposite side of the floor and start with like a cut through first or something. Go opposite side instead of playing the 1-2 game all the time. Kickback. So this is that middle penetration, get stopped, throw it. Got two great clips here from Kurt's team. I mean, this one right here, was she player of the year 2 years in a row? You're on mute.
Not the COVID year, but because we just did regional player of the years, but she was 2-time player of the year.
Okay, there's your pitch or your kickback. Okay. She read catch go. It was catch go. Straight, there's your lane penetration. Now again, your spacing probably should be 23 here, 44 in this area right here. These two are not spaced well. They should be spaced a little bit further apart, but she got such a layup, it wasn't even a factor. But in those situations where she gets stopped and needs to pivot and move and find people, one player can guard both those players.
Okay. 44 is not the fastest kid in America, so getting them to go to the corners is really important, and then lifting off of that.
Okay, now here's going to be another option off of it. So now this is out of transition for them, and they're running to their spots. This one, it's people ask about two-sided break, 5 out. Well, you don't have anybody in that opposite corner there. No big deal. Concepts still stay the same. She went middle. We had a player go behind. What'd she do? Went under. And we have stretch, corner spaced. It's okay. Wide open 3.
And we use the term condensing an area to create space in the other. So we just basically condensed those 3 and allowed those 2 to play in space on the one side of the floor.
Okay, no game film on this. This is combining the 2 actions. So combining kickbacks and kickups. So we went kick up, and we drove it, and we went kickback. And now off of that, the question would be, what does 3 do? 90% of the time, you replace the player you pass to. So that's what it would look like. So if 5 did not have a drive, they could pass, cut, and now 3 could attack that triple gap. Or could have been a shot, could have been a straight line drive, could have been lots of things. Now, this is the meat and potatoes of when your guards can start understanding this, you know you're running a good dribble drive. But playing out of this and making these reads gets a little bit tricky. So let's go over a drag 2 option here. And drag 2 is, drag 2. There we go. So we went middle drive. And the reason why it's called a drag 2 for teaching purposes is they went to the 3 side of the floor and they threw it to the 2 side of the floor from the drag zone. Now, you replace 90% of the time. You're going to see one of the 10% here in a second of when you do not replace the person you pass to. Now, it's beyond the scope of tonight, but if you do have a post and you want to emphasize the post here, I would not have that player go ball side. I'd have them go there and have your spacing go like that so that they just have, because if this player doesn't get to that corner and sprint, that defender is going to sit right here potentially on that and be able to double that post feed if you're going to feed your post.
Yeah, a lot of my buddy dribble drive guys will call that drag and duck, where they'll come down and throw a drag, and it's an immediate duck on any skip with a dominant big. So that could be something that you think about. And there's a really good question in there that Facebook user, just kidding, talks about emphasizing attacking the next gap before the defense can catch up. Some will square up on a kick up. And this is how
Is it that one? Is it that one?
It's that one. That's where I'm a 0.5 decision guy. You're either going to shoot it, you're going to drive it off a split sprint, and or you're going to move it because maybe we've attacked, and it's funny because I spent some time talking to some guys last summer at coaching you and a couple NBA guys, and they're so funny. They're so rigid. I mean, the NBA guys, because if you're not doing it a certain way, they think you're nuts. So like they say, we don't drive another drive. That's a rule. We don't drive a drive. I'm like, well, that's what I do 40 times a game. We drive a drive. You know what I mean? Because dribble drive is sometimes 2 consecutive drives. In the NBA, well, we can't drive a drive. And I watch a game. I'm watching Dallas and Phoenix, and they drive a drive all the time. They absolutely 100% drive a drive 40 times. Okay, so they say that, but they don't do it. And I'm not trying to make light of the quality of coaching at their level, but what I'm saying is for me, it's all based on the decision making, and I think we overcoach the game and we do too much stuff that doesn't translate to the game. And I'm not going to go full Chris Oliver on you and tell you that everything has to be done a certain way, but I will tell you that the more decisions you can put them in practice, deciding what to do with the closeout, what to do with the defender, and our rules are simple. If you're open, you shoot it. If the defender is too close, we're gonna jump off 2, land on 2, and we're gonna split sprint. We're gonna jump off 2 and shoot it. Or if maybe we get a situation where, Mark, go back to that drive there. Let's say we get to right here and the 1 picks it up, but instead of throwing it to the 3, maybe they throw it straight back, straight drag 5. Okay. Maybe the 5 decides I'm not open, I'm defended well, I might just move it. Instead of split sprint attack, it might be a 1 to 5 to 3. That's a Doug Novak down, up, over. Dribble down, up with a pass, over, and now for me, the 1 would exit out to the 3 side. The 5 would shallow cut through or deep cut if we knew they were switching, and I would give 3 almost an S gap right there. So for me, Coach, it's all 0.5 decision making. I'm not going to hold it. If I hold it, that's the one thing. I yell less and less the older I get, but I will get upset if we hold the ball and allow the defense to get reset. We've got them in, the popular term now is dominoes. We've got them in dominoes. Don't give them back the advantage of setting the dominoes back up.
Okay, so here we are in transition. Our girl again is not getting to the corner. It's going to work out for us in our favor. She didn't get to the corner, then lift up. But our point guard attacks, and she threw an a drop-ish early skip right there. Okay? We talked about long closeouts, point, and shot selections. Right there, Kurt was talking about shot selection. She's far enough away. That's a rip it and shoot it. I don't think anybody in here is going to say that she shouldn't have shot that. So if her feet were probably closed out on that 3-point line, it should have probably been move it or drive it. It should have been her decisions.
Unless it's the principal's kid, then.
And now this one here is a little bit more patience, but I wanted to show you this because so this is what Kurt kind of talked about. They swung it a little bit and ran a little bit of shallow action. It wasn't just straight. And now she's in that drag area and she kind of gets into a semi-Barkley-ish type thing, a protection plan here, if you will, and is really patient. Boom. And then here's your potential seal opportunity. This player, me and Kurt went over this last night. We were talking with each other, and she doesn't cut. I think she just empties to here, seeing if the girl's going to rip at baseline to see if she's going to fill behind her. But she didn't do the whole concepts, but she thought she was far enough away, and she let it rip too. So those are two.
Think if you play basketball enough, she probably had a feeling that kid loves to shoot the 3. She's going to let it fly.
Okay, real quick, here's the drag 5 Kurt was talking about. So now, again, I said 90% of the time you throw to the person you pass to. The reason why I do not have this player cut to here afterwards is now you would be bringing X1 into the gap. I don't play that way. So if they're in the drag zone or rack zone, they empty out opposite of where they pass, is how I've taught it over the years. So on this, as you can see, 3 is the player that replaced it, and 1 replaced 3 right there. So when you're working on your skeleton and stuff, that's one of the ones where I see 3 hanging out over here a little bit. And then if they went middle drive, you have that negative kickback and some bad downhill, and you're getting yourself into some weave because they're not getting high up into the slots or high and wide. They're staying flat. Okay, so here's a little bit of a drag 5 type of look here. That's a shallow cut to create the gap. And she didn't like it. Okay, playing basketball. She went for the steal, 0.5 decision, rip. Now you got to decide, is that a good shot for you? I think a pull-up right there is good. That she lunged in a little bit, whatever, but I think the shot, she was open. So you got to decide. When people say this is a no mid-range offense, that's a mid-range shot. But for me, that's in the key. I don't mind key ones. I don't like the ones that are outside the key from the lane line to the three-point line or from the free throw line to the three-point line. I like the shots around the SEC and in the paint.
Only thing I would add is 21 seconds on the shot clock, and that's the best shot I could get. That's the only, if she's my best player, I don't say 2 words to it. If she's my 4th best player, shooting a 0.5 shot with 21 seconds on the shot clock, then I'm probably watching that closely. And there's another good follow-up comment there to that discussion we just had that I think, because I know we're getting to the end here, is a chance to pause. And I 100%, John and I were able to talk at the Final Four a little bit, and he's a very, very bright young coach, and does some good stuff. I 100% agree that there's those times where sometimes you just have to allow, especially against a team switching, as let's say we went swing, attack, where you just let them clear a little bit more, bounce it out, maybe take a back dribble to reattack. But I totally get that. And so that's a good little piggyback for somebody taking notes there at home. There are times when a slight pause comes up.
Yeah. We're going to be getting to that in the next couple nights. Kind of why the training camp aspect of this is to give you some tools and some things to take to your practices so you can get this installed. Yeah, we're going to be going over small-sided games and ways to get people into this, because it is. I've said this before. I almost want to change the name from Dribble Drive Motion Offense to DMO, Decision Making Offense, because that's basically what you're making drive. You're making drive decisions, and then you're picking the ball up. Do I shoot it? Do I pass it? What do I do with it? It's a total decision-making offense. Okay. Now, if you want to improve your offense in Dribble Drive, do these more than you do them. Cut back door. It's the least. It is most. When I watch game film of my team and everybody, it's probably go, oh, that should have been a backdoor opportunity. That was a backdoor opportunity. That was a backdoor opportunity. So when I'm teaching out of the rack zone, out of the drop zone, I teach this first. When we pick the ball up in this area, I teach the backdoor options first. I teach that kick up option last. I don't even teach. I usually would teach it like the 3rd day, because I want them driving and I want them cutting back door. I don't want them looping and just playing perimeter, pass the ball out on the perimeter. I want them attack mindset. And the driving and the dropping are those key ones for me. So a drop is stopping in that area and reading the defense. So they're reading that 2 is being denied, so they cut back door. And the way I teach it is on that back door, 4 flashes to the elbow, 5 stays high and wide because they haven't broke the line. If this player came over here, you are risking a potential double team there and a steal. I see teams do this all the time. They drive and the player picks it up and that person was impatient and they got behind them. Yeah, if they pick it up, this player's not open, that player's not open. Now they could probably run off for like a handoff if they need it. But don't come unless they need the help. Do they need help or do they need space? I said that earlier tonight, so write that one down. It's Doug Novak. I heard it from him in a clinic. Do they need help or do they need space? And you'll be saying that to your girls or boys in practice all the time, and they'll start saying it. Does the player need help or do they need space? Okay, so here's Kurt takes concepts and uses them out of bounds plays too. So this is just, they got it in and they're playing concept. She's dribbling at, stops, backdoor opportunity. Okay. Not sure, he could probably tell you they got a double screen, I think, set up on the other side. Someone's going to probably come off a double, so it's a little bit different than a traditional drop, but they get the drop backdoor.
Yeah. And we emphasize on that for ball protection purposes, a 2-foot stop facing the sideline, kind of stride stop into it. That's a Greg Campy thing from way back. It's been good to us for preventing turnovers, for ball protection on those pickups when we know we're maybe setting something up or we're in the course of getting stopped on a drive.
Okay, so that was a drop 2. Now, drop 3 would be the opposite side. So when we talked about sides of the floor, 2 side, 3 sides. I know Kurt's numbering system a little bit different. Kurt would call this it's 300 something, but 31.
300s are kickups. It'd still be a drop 3 for us. We would just have the 5 up high and the 4 down low.
Okay, so this is one that takes a lot of teaching. You have a nail cut. 4 created the gap to drive. 5 relocated. 3's backdooring. Now 5's flashing. And when you teach this, this is the player that's going to steal that. So if 5 stayed low and did not elevate, 5 can guard 5 and 3. So that's the spacing component of the offense right there. Okay, so we have a couple of sets here that you're really going to like. Nothing more. As a coach, you get fired up when you see this action. I love this actions. So they went straight drop 3 here. Okay, they got layup. Now we have, this one's going to be more like how I showed in the diagram. They had one do a running blur ghost type screen here. And she picks it up. There's Kurt talking about protection with the shoulders and everything to the sideline. And there's the bounce pass. Okay. And now here is not getting the layup. They go pass, cut, into it. Set them up. There's your back door. There's your tee up, or there's your dump off to the post because the post came over to help. Okay. Great actions on 3 different ones there. Last one is what I refer to as a drop 4. It can be ran a couple ways. I'm just going to show the basic way is why it becomes a drop 4. 2 is not open on the back door. And that is because 4 helped. 4's man helped. And we pass. The options on this are one cuts to the rim or cuts, and it could be a pass, or it could be a jump shot or a drive. If you have a 4 that is not comfortable driving there, they can turn and find a player on the perimeter and play DHO and roll back into the post. Simple fix. Let's take a look at, this is really great action from Kurt's team. Not open because, like I said, the post helped. And the player came a little bit wider to the elbow. He could probably tell you.
Yeah, that's a freshman probably coming a little too far over. But again, what we tell them there a lot of times is you just have to find a way to make a catch. Yeah. And if it's 6 feet away, sometimes it's 6 feet away. You draw it on paper, it's the elbow. Sometimes if the player's wider, like that one was, you might have to come to the nail. In this case, the kid just came all the way over, and it's still, again, the give and go on a second option here. Again, Vance called it drop 4. I call it drop 1 because it's for our 1. Is a super effective way to clear space, give a player who's being maybe harassed or guarded tightly a quick escape. And there's a couple of ways the footwork works, but it's an easy little play that you can get that at minimum is going to get you a drive for your big.
This is off kickback. So, like you said, you can run all these concepts. Like if they take it away and she had to go middle, you can still run the action, the drop actions. Okay, she gets leveled off, sets it up. Boom, teed up. A little bit more spacing there. More of a veteran player. I know she's been with you guys for a while.
Yeah.
But same result there. The key is, what I see a lot of times is that player, and I don't know if it's good or bad, instead of them cutting, coach, they go to that 2 corner and maybe make it into a 2-man game, but I think that ruins the drive opportunity for the post to just go. So that's just, you could pick and choose what you want to do there. My rule is you pass and you cut. And if you don't, you fill the opposite corner.
Right.
And you get a lot of good results like that. A couple things real quick, and we're going to wrap it up tonight, is some brief stuff before we get into more of this later on. How do you create the gap? Well, there's your nail cut. You've seen that tonight, and you get into the offense. Start playing out of the offense. A through cut or an arrow cut. So 5 is just going to cut to the opposite corner, and 1 starts driving that big gap. The other way to do it is 5 through, nail cut, through cut. Okay, is the other ways, real quick for you guys to do it, is X5 is at the nail guarding there. You go 1 to 5, and now 1 can shallow cut, nail cut, or 1 can arrow cut to the corner, and we play out of it. Little question here that I wanted to get to. Instead of picking up the ball in the drop zone, what are your thoughts on a back dribble being the indicator for the ball side corner to kick up drop?
Well, I've saw the question a little bit ago, and I've kind of drawn up a couple things in my head. I think the one thing about the back dribble is traditionally in dribble drive, it's an indicator for a post flash. Some guys use it for that. Some guys will use it for a back dribble re-attack or a back dribble swing. You know, if you have a non-driver back dribbling, you might move it once, shallow cut, deep cut, and then let the next kid go. I think the angles might get bad, Coach, for a back dribble back door. I think you're taking away any angle that you might have if you're backing out there and then trying to throw a drop. I have a feeling that might be a little tough. If you back dribble into a drop 4, that might be effective where the 2 is cleared and the back dribble indicates a post flash give and go. That's traditional in dribble drive. Vance always talked about on bounce outs. That was his indicator for the 4 to come running up, catch the ball, and run give and go with whoever had it. If you back dribble out, pass, cut, and that could be highly effective, coaches. If you've got a 4 that's kind of savvy, can find a hole in the defense, can catch it in some traffic, especially when you're on a 2-man side, and you could back dribble into a ball screen, as Alfred said. You could back dribble into a brush cut. You could back dribble into a lot of great things.
All righty, guys.
Hey, Mark,
we went a little longer. Go ahead.
If you could, that one private chat I sent you of the one possession, I think might just wrap it up for us in the YouTube. I don't know if you can get that to show.
Which one do you want?
We'll wrap up.
You want the one? I want the one
in the private chat, the very first one with D8 at the end.
All right,
I don't know if we could get that to show.
Yeah, I can bring it up. Let me be our last little one possession here. Is it up, Kurt?
I haven't seen anything yet.
Okay, share. There it is. Wait. Is it there now?
You've got YouTube there. You've got
Is it there? What do you got on the screen?
It was. Yep, there it was. There it was.
All right, let's start it.
Go back.
All right.
This is on my YouTube channel, guys. It's just, I think a possession late in the game. You can see the score. Pretty competitive team. So we're just going concept, kick back, patient in the corners, kick up. We're going to, again, try to eat a little clock here. Another kick back. We get deep in the drag. We dribble out of the drag. Great decision. Just a great decision deep in the drag. And we end up with a window, kind of a 2-foot kind of dagger, playing off 2 coming there. And that's, again, in my YouTube channel. If you just type in KG Basketball, CCC Women, I've kind of rebranded, as Mark would say, trying to get it more personalized because I'm starting to do some stuff with some teams. And I wanted to be able to make it more than just my college team, our college team, more of like sharing some of the stuff that I'm doing up and down the West Coast a little bit with some clinics doing dribble drive stuff.
Well, thank you, Coach, for joining us, Coach. That was just a taste of it, guys. I know you've probably heard us kind of do this. We had a little bit more game film than we normally have because we had our seasons. When we did our original stuff, we were sitting in COVID and we didn't have game film, and now we have some stuff to share, more a little bit of stuff to share. But that was just a taste of it. Tomorrow night's night 2. I will probably only go about an hour tomorrow night. Day 1 always goes a little bit longer. If you're not in the Facebook group and you're on YouTube, head on over to Dribble Drive Motion Hoop Talk on Facebook, because I'm going to put a thread tomorrow morning or later tonight saying, hey, what'd you think of day 1? Give us your thoughts and opinions. And then you can drop your questions if you had any in there, and me and Kurt can take a look at them throughout the day and maybe answer the questions, or another community member might have some thoughts for you guys on it there. So it's a great little place to talk basketball with coaches. I know a lot of you are on YouTube tonight, and sometimes that's easier to join, and I wasn't able to maybe allow you in on the Facebook group, but I'll go look at that tonight after I ate some dinner and spend some time with my daughter. But I appreciate you guys hanging out. 6 o'clock tomorrow night. Check your emails, but it's going to be inside the Facebook group again, and it's going to be inside on the YouTube channel again tomorrow night for you guys to join us. Kurt, you got anything?
No, as always, as you look at some of these things, trying to think about how it can help your team. And that's what we have to do as coaches, try to get a little bit better every day. We have try to emphasize the 1% rule. I try to live it. And so each day try to get a little bit better. And hopefully there was some info that helped you be a little bit better, learn some things. Maybe you're on the ground floor trying to decide whether you're even going to do dribble drive. Maybe you've experimented with it and want to get better at it. I think whatever level you're at, hopefully we're giving you some info. And again, we're not claiming to know everything at all. We're just trying to share some things that we've found about Dribble Drive over the years that have worked for us. But again, we love hearing other ideas too for guys out there that might be a little bit more veteran. So there were some great questions in there tonight.
Yeah, we could tell we had a little bit of newbies and some veteran coaches that made us go, ooh. That's
Good
like
question.
you said, advanced thinking and I'm going to go back and look at your Coach Sangster. Maybe I'll send you an email, but it was wasn't positive on this one, and then we'll hang it out. Thoughts on using the veer layup footwork?
That goes to some of the finishing school stuff. How you're teaching that. Again, I'm so big on not necessarily discovery learning, but kids finishing with contact every day, having to make a decision on the catch and a decision on the finish. Do we have to give them some guided parts to it? I think yes. I think we do. Veer is, to me, a tool in the toolbox where they're trying to put the defense in a hostage position temporarily, or like I think Mark, you've used this before. On the drive, foul them first, foul the defense first, and then finish with more space. I think on the women's side that's huge, because if you can get a little bump and now you've created more space for yourself, and the second positive of that is you create a better angle. Instead of trying to shy away from the contact, getting to a worse and worse angle, because basketball is a game of angles. We all know that. You're getting to a better angle with fouling them first. You call it veer, coach. I mean, those are all really good things to teach, to have in the toolbox. And I think doing that in the concept of playing one-on-one or disadvantage one-on-one, like, okay, that would have been a great time for you to veer in, foul them first, and then go for it. And then when you have those aha moments, you celebrate them, and then they'll do them, and you'll have magic happening with kids that can finish a little bit.
So you're still on. He hung it, and I love it because he sent me where he was from, California, Missouri. How ironic is that, since I'm from California? So California, Missouri. So wonder if we have. I don't even know. Wonder if we have a Missouri, California here. So I don't know. But thanks for joining us, guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow. If you got questions for us, get in that Facebook group, put in the comments. You can add comments to this on YouTube. I'll check those out as well. But we'll see you tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, everybody. Go ahead, Kurt. Do it.
Good luck, coaches.
That's his for you guys that know us, that's his
catchphrase.
That's his catchphrase. All right, guys. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Thanks for joining us.